Audio Jungle.
Hey everyone, I just finished recording the Dromai draft tier list video. I thought it'd be just a good time just to jump right into Phi. So for anyone who didn't watch that previous video, basically all I did was I broke down into a few different tiers, like how I've been approaching the Uprising draft format. I have quite a few drafts in now at this point, and I'm gearing up to go into the RTN draft season. And I just want to kind of give some thoughts. These are all my experience and my own understanding of the game, specifically of this limited format. So obviously these are, these are kind of loose and they're definitely prone to personal error. So if you have a different experience and you're pretty convinced, then obviously I'm open to hearing that. So this is just my experience playing the format. So breaking it down to a few things, we have like Force in it, which are going to be cards you're going to see between picks like 1 and 5. And this is a good signifier that the class is open, the hero's open, or these are cards that you can start forcing immediately to send signals to the person next to you. Unfortunately, a downside of the Uprising draft format is that you can get locked out of classes pretty quickly, and you also need to commit extremely fast. So these are cards that, and this is going to double up because, also the higher ends of the tiers are, what you want your deck archetype to be around. So like in the Dromai list, like I put obviously cards you would like to pick up early, things like the Embermaw and the Dunebreaker Centipeds, the aggressive low-cost dragons like Kylori and Chromai, the Haymaker dragons like Dominia and Optimi, and really solid equipment pieces like Silken Form and Sash. Obviously these are cards you want to pick up early, but also it's a way to think about the deck of like, what do you want to do, right? Because in Dromai you want to build a board state, and you also want these really overstatted Phantasm attacks that can't be popped in a limited format with very few Phantasm poppers. So if that's what you want your deck to be, then obviously you need to pick these up early. So there's a little bit of overlap between the two. Hopefully that doesn't make things too complex. Starting out with Force It, cards I would like to see in my first 5 picks. Cards that I would like to build the Phi archetype around. Now, the Phi archetype is mostly centered and limited around recurring your Phoenix Flame. Large combat chains are a really easy way to abuse Phi's ability, and it lets you go wide and also in some cases tall. Some pretty aggressive attacks too. Man, I am just roasting up here. I turn off my AC to record these videos, so I'm like 2 hours into being upstairs with no AC, and it is doing, and the heat outside is doing its work. So cards I'd like to see pretty early on. I think Keyflame is good. Keyflame is a really solid card. I obviously need this card in the deck at some point. I think that the Quell, it's weird because I talked about this in the Dromai video, but I think that Silken Form is probably the best arm Quell equipment because you can use the ability anytime throughout the game and you can still activate the effect. So like if your opponent does damage to you on your turn, you can even activate it then by pitching a red to Quell and then breaking it for the Ashwing. The problem is if you Quell on your opponent's turn, you can't use it to buff your Phoenix Flame. So I think there's like a problem here. So I think it's like in the solid, it's tough because like either it does a lot of damage or it prevents a lot of damage. So I'm like really in between these two because the Quell effect is really strong and then the +1 is really strong too. I'm just disappointed you can't use both normally at the same time. I'm not like pack one picking this, and in the first 5 I may not even take it either. So maybe it's like solid pickup. I think I'm okay without it, but I think having 2 Phoenix Flames turns this into 4 damage, which I think is like, maybe that's good enough. I don't know. We can maybe move this around at some point. We'll start off strong with a good staple that you want in the deck. Phoenix Form, I think is entirely deck dependent. It's entirely deck dependent on how many Phoenix Flames you have and how readily those are available. So like it's a good setup card, I suppose, but you need to have multiple Phoenix Flames on the chain for this really to do much. At its best, it's just a head jab. It's a 0 for 3 if you have 1 Phoenix Flame. But the problem is that you want to play this early so that you get the Draconic links to play the Phoenix Flame. Because if you get the Phoenix Flame, then you're already at the end of your turn. So like the fact that, this has Go Again, it doesn't really matter because you're out of cards anyway. You're not playing like Art of War, like Mask of Momentum, Tome stuff in Constructed, right? You're playing limited, so you're unfortunately at the mercy of probably the 4 cards you're going to see every turn, maybe 5 if you're arseling. I think it's deck dependent on like how many like Flame Call Awakenings you have, how many Phoenix Flames you're even running in your deck. So it can be strong, but I think it's difficult because you're gonna have a tough time really getting value out of this, and then you're gonna have trouble even getting the Phoenix Flame in the first place without, you know, playing cards that, you know, need the Draconic keyword and go again. And then if this is just 0 for 3 with go again at the end of your chain, you know, you're fine playing any other card. Spreading Flames, I think is probably in the Force It tier. It's a little bit harder to pull off because you don't get to like have the same tight curve as you would in Constructed. Just the effect to go really wide on the chain and get +1 to everything, I think it's just more than enough. I think you're really comfortable picking this up early. Combustion Point is the route style effect. I don't like it. I think it's probably junk. It's not useful. I think I'd rather have a red threat in my hand that actually deals damage rather than just like removes like a block from my opponent. I think the biggest thing about Phi is you want lots of go again. You want lots of really strong Draconic chain links, but also you want them to be cheap so that pitching to attack with Emberblade and then pay for the Phoenix Flame is like not difficult for you to pull off. So what I'm looking for is a lot of 0 cost and a lot of 1 cost with go again innately on them that are Draconic. And I'm not looking for like attack reactions or these sort of gimmicky cards that are difficult to pull off in limited. Obviously, if the stars align and you have like this perfect deck that can like, you know, rip Phoenix form and like, you know, and draw 3 cards and great, you know, then you got a little bit lucky in terms of your draft pool. But on, you know, your average Phi draft pool, I'm not looking for Combustion Point, right? Engulfing Flame, like this one, I think this one's okay. The ability to banish a card and maybe play it is solid, but just the 2 for 5 is kind of difficult. I think it's a solid pickup. Does have go again. Mounting Anger, I think it's gonna force it. Like, I think that's a really solid card I would like to see. Just giving +1 to something on the chain is really good. Even if it's your opening card, like you have plenty of 0 costs and giving them +1 easily makes this like pretty valuable. And then we have Rise from the Ashes. I think at any pitch, I'm happy to see this. It doesn't really matter. With a blue pitch, it's resources that late game grabs you a Phoenix Flame, and at red, it's now a threat. And sometimes you need Phoenix Flame just to open up your combat chain. Sometimes you just don't really have like the Draconic go again that you need. And sometimes like getting Phoenix Flame and like losing a damage by having to be your first attack, but still presenting damage with Rise from the Ashes is like more than enough, honestly. I think that card's really good. Brand is solid. I think Brand is really solid. I think I would like to grab many of them, especially the red ones, but any color is like perfectly fine for me. I think it's an interesting distinction with Phi is that you're more comfortable grabbing any colors of cards as opposed to maybe like Dramai, where you specifically want the reds with go again. But like in here, I'm perfectly comfortable playing like yellows and blues, even though they're not ideal. I obviously want the reds, but if I'm forced to take them, it's not that bad because as long as it's a Draconic with innate go again, and all of a sudden now Emberblade comes in with go again, and then Phoenix Flame costs 1, and that's more than enough sometimes. Like it keeps you pretty up to pace with like the damage you want to be outputting, even if it's, you know, a little bit tough. All right, Cinderskin Devotion, I think it's pure filler, if not junk. I think the cards that require a Draconic card to be already on the chain before it gets go again are a problem, because normally this is a card that you need, especially if it's like a red. This is a card that you need to actually like open up your combat chain. Like assuming I'm keeping this in a blue, for instance, not that I really would, because I think Phi normally wants to say no blocks, but like what happens if you get stuck with 2 in your hand? You just don't really have a way out here. And you can't like get away with your weapon because your weapon it has the same restriction. So this is the same restriction as your weapon, which I think is a really big problem for the card. And I really am not comfortable picking this up at like any point throughout the draft, but I would really like to stay as far away from this card as possible. I think it's filler. I think you want to be running like in between like 7 to 10 blues in Phi. And the blues are okay because late game you can play like a Draconic go again, and then you can play like the blue and play like Emberblade and then get like a free Phoenix Flame, and it's okay. And the red can sometimes be all right, but like that's all it is. It's all right. It's filler. It's like couldn't find a better card, so here we are. We're making do. Dust Runner Outlaw is like, oh man, it's high up there. It's high up there. Like 1/4 on red, 1/4 go again, draconic, huge. Like blue pitch means you're getting like that plus Ember Blade on a turn. That's like a 2-card 7 damage hand. Any other card now gets you a free Phoenix Flame. Like this card is aggressively solid, and I'm really happy to see it like pretty consistently. Multiple copies if I can. Even yellow's good. Blue is fine for late game when you just need to present something. Lava Vein Loyalty, same problem. Needs a Draconic Link to gain go again. Pretty much all these are going to be in filler to junk. Maybe you can even argue these are deck dependent based on, you know, because if you have like, you know, 90% like brands and like all your 0 cost head jabs with go again, then it's like, okay, maybe these are like marginally better, but it's not by much. So maybe we can put these in deck dependent. Like you're running like a couple, but you're just overwhelmed with like go again Draconic Chain Links and you don't ever think you're gonna brick on a hand where these are in it, then like, okay, we can make an argument for it. Rebellious Rush is interesting because I actually have had really positive experiences playing this card, because 2 blues means that you can play this, Ember Blade, and Phoenix Flame on 1 turn. That's like a 9 damage hand off of 3 cards, but I get it, it's like a little bit underrated. I'm also like evaluating these mostly at red, not as much at yellow, and like blues are an afterthought, but 3 attack on a blue late game is like, it's okay. I think it's a solid pickup. I'm never mad when I have to take these, but over these other cards, I think I'd prefer these more. Rising Resentment is like right up there with Brand. It's actually better than Brand. It's definitely on the high end cards that I want. Just the ability to reduce costs is huge. And if you're playing it first on the chain, it's fine, you know, because it's just your Draconic head jab, go again. So it's perfectly good. Same goes for this Ronin Renegade. Same deal. Just head jab with go again. Draconic, you need them in the deck for the deck to function. You're taking these early. You're seeing these like past pick 4, pick 5. Like it's a signal it's probably open, especially on red. Same goes for this. It's just another 1 for 4 with go again. Does have like this really weird marginal upside where it's like if it hits, it's the same deal. Like it's equal or less than the amount of Draconic Chain Links, it gets go again, but like all your cards have go again anyway, so it's just here for the stat value and the Draconic go again. Like some of these you don't really care. Like Brand you don't care about like giving Draconic to your next attack. In this card you don't care about giving go again, you know. Smash, you force it, pack 1, pick 1, same deal with Dramai. This is, I mean, it's huge. It's a resource on a chess piece. Once you see one, you're probably not seeing it again, and you're probably not seeing another one for the rest of the draft. So the second you see it, you take it, and then you start moving on. There's probably very few cards I would take over this, just because you can sometimes expect these to wheel, or maybe you see them from the person to your right. If they're playing Dromai, you're obviously going to get past, you know, maybe like Spreading Flames, but if they're on Dromai, they're not passing you Sash. So take it when you get it. That's all I can say. It's deck dependent. It's good into Dromai as a Phantasm Popper, and it's like okay into Iyslander, although, you know, they're not playing Ice Afflictions. Like you're probably not getting Frost Hexed in limited, and you're not starting your turn normally with the Frostbite, but sometimes like it may happen if they play Arctic Incarceration, so maybe there's some upside there. Uprising, great card. Rank it very highly. Only problem is it's only good if you have a threat. So if you don't have any attacks in your hand, it doesn't really do anything. It's also not technically a Draconic Chain Link, so you can't just like play it and then Ember Blade go again. So you need to have something else. But this is like an arsenal card. It's a setup card. You'll just overwhelm your opponent. It's really solid. Tome, junk. You're not pulling off the effect. Same deal with Dromai. In constructed, still probably not, but you at least have more game in constructed. You're not getting this sort of deal off in limited, I don't think. At least not in my opinion. Not from what I've seen. Red Hot is deck dependent. It's like if you're lacking on a lot of these more aggressive cards. I actually had a pretty successful 5 draft with a really like kind of bad deck that was playing Red Hot, but if you just pitch stack it correctly with like some Phoenix Flames or like any other red cards, and you can just have a pitch stack with it that's like really solid, and then you can just have an explosive turn where Red Hot can deal like between, like on average I've seen Red Hot do like 7, 6, anywhere between like 6 and 8 damage sometimes. So like Off a 2 cost, it's like really good actually. So if you can pitch stack it correctly and play like a setup deck, then it's fine. But it's really kind of only there if you weren't able to find the other cards. So maybe we'll put in filler. Rise Up just feels bad. The Dominate is just not very good. You're probably not getting multiple Phoenix Flames on the table. You're probably getting one. It's like okay, it's filler. Maybe it's deck dependent based on how many Phoenix Flames and how easy you're able to recur them. Blade Sidelong is a solid pickup. 0 for 4 with Go again if you play another red. Means that you need to have multiple cards in your hand, but it's very strong when it's online. Breaking Point is, I would rank it very highly. You're normally able to proc this every single turn. You can even normally proc this off of like a 4-card hand. Yeah, you can probably proc it off a 4-card hand. If you have like a blue, a 0 cost. Oh no, you wouldn't be able to. Okay, so you're gonna need a little bit. You'll probably have to arsenal it first. Unless if you have Sash, because you can Sash it out. Because you can go like blue. If you have like a blue, a 0 cost, Breaking Point. And anything else, and you're okay. So yeah, you can't do it off a 4-card hand because you can play the 0 cost, pitch 2 to play Ember Blade. You have 1 left floating. You can recur the Phoenix for 1. And then assuming you have any other card, even a red to pitch, you can play Breaking Point, or you can like use Sash and Breaking Point and arsenal your last card. So Breaking Point's really high up there. It's a really strong effect. Also blocks for 3. You're able to pull it off much easier than Dramai is, so. Burn them all. I think it's filler. It's just a 0 for 4 with Go again late game. If you want to pitch stack it early, then it becomes pretty solid. Or if you just have a lot of Phoenix Flames and you get them early, then you're fine burning one because you're not really gonna have like constant recursion unless if your deck is like that. But I'm never really happy to take this, but I'll take this like pick 10 or something, you know, like really late in the pack when I just need stuff. It's a Draconic that can get Go again. 0 for 4 is fine. Also blocks 3. Flamecall Retribution, I think, is deck dependent. If you're really trying to bank on like wide Phoenix Flame turns, like if you've drafted like Uprising, you have your Heat Wave, you know, you're like all in on like the go wide Phoenix Flame. You're not like trying to like really set up like some go tall attacks, right, with like these like 2 for 5s, then it's probably fine there. Flamecall Awakening is a solid pickup. I like this card. You can pitch blue, play it, Ember Blade, play the Phoenix Flame, recur the other one for free. So that's like off of what, a 2-card hand? Oh no, sorry, you need a red card first. Off a 3-card hand. You're able just to, wind up your combat chain really tight. Flamecall is the turn where you can pop Heat Wave and get 2 damage out of your equipment. So I think it's perfectly fine there. Same goes for Inflame. I think Inflame has the same application. It's really good. I think Lava Burst is definitely a really solid pickup. You may not be able to proc it every turn, but in the turns where you can, like 0 for 5, it's nuts. It's a great card. Searing Touch is like, I don't like it. I think we're noticing a trend with like these Draconic sort of like Rupture cards. Some of these, right? Or like these, where they just like, they're just kind of mediocre effects. They're not really anything super impressive. They get the job done, but not in a way that's better than anything else here on this list. And I think Searing Touch is like probably the most lackluster out of all of them. A 1 for 5 at the end is like not that great. It's only relevant because the 2 damage is textless, so your opponent would have to quell it to stop it, or Oasis. But like, why would you ever take this card over Breaking Point? This is a much better Rupture card, and they do the same amount of damage. This is pure filler. Stoke the Flames is difficult. I think it's good at the end of a turn. I don't think it's good at the beginning because your opponent can just block it with everything and then just end your turn immediately. Maybe if you're in a Phi mirror, it's good. So we'll put it in deck dependent. I think if you're in an aggressive mirror, then obviously making your opponent block with 2 cards, like especially with Phi, because you're going to force them to block with like a 3 block and a 2 block, or 2 blocks. Like you can sort of command tempo that way, and you can make the Phi basically lose their next turn essentially, or you can rend to go even wider on your own. But like outside of that, like I'm not really happy to play this into any other matchup. It's just too easy to shut off. I think at the end of a chain, I think it's okay, but that's kind of where I'm at. Phoenix Flame is just on here as a meme. It's in your deck. I threw that on there without really thinking about it. So yeah, obviously, great card. Play it. Play 3 copies actually. At least play 1. Like, just dear God, at least please play 1 in your deck. Even if you think having a 31 card deck is bad, I promise. If you read Phi's text box, you'll be very happy. Tide Flippers are a solid pickup. I remember hearing it was Brendan on Arsenal Pass talking about this card. I really agreed with him after playing this so much. I've never used Tide Flipper's ability once. I don't think I've ever used its ability once. The go again off of a 2 or less base attack is never relevant because all your cards have go again unless if your deck is bad. And I don't know. I've never used this. It's just there for Arcane Barrier. You can just pick this up if you're ready to play against Icelander if you think you need it. But honestly, like, I'd rather pick Quelling Slippers over this card. The go again is rarely ever. I might even put this in deck dependent. I've never used the go again. Double Strike is tough because it's not draconic, but it still goes wide. This is obviously really good and constructed where you can play Mask of Momentum, and all of a sudden, like, this card starts threatening Mask really quickly. But I think in here it's just a solid pickup. Like, I'm happy to see the card, but it doesn't really do anything spectacular unless if you're playing Brand and you can give this the draconic keyword. That's about it. I think the tempo is really solid. It's a great haymaker. Like, 1 for 5 on its own that blocks for 3 is already like enough of a stat in itself. But the fact that like it threatens like a pseudo card draw effect is really good. You're probably not playing very many non-attacks in this deck. Like, if you look here, like, there's not a lot going on that's in terms of non-attacks. So on average, statistically, you're probably going to hit a card that you can play. And the fact that it counts itself, so like if you like attack with a card and they take it, you attack with Ember Blade and they block it, you attack with the Phoenix Flame and they take it. If you attack with a take the tempo and it hits, then I'm pretty sure, my understanding is that you would get the card because it hits, and that's 3 things that have hit that turn. So it's really easy to actually threaten the proc on this. I thought it'd be more difficult, but after playing this in draft, it's actually very easy. So yeah, I think the card's really good. Rapid Reflex is like junk. You can like bait like a really cheesy win out with it. You can like Phoenix Flame for 0 and your opponent says no blocks, and you can like do it for whatever amount of damage based on the color strip, but like, I don't know why I'd ever want to play this card. Quelling Robe is just filler if you weren't able to find Sash. Quelling Sleeves are filler if you weren't able to find Heat Wave, because they're, I mean, like, this and Heat Wave are the same effect except for the fact that it doesn't give your Phoenix Flames +1. So it's only there for the defensive Quell property. Quelling Slippers are a solid pickup. You obviously would like to see these at some point. You can go in between Force It and here. You're just really happy to take them. I would prioritize them pretty highly, honestly. The problem is, like, in Phi's, you don't want to block very often, so like you don't really want to give up a card to use Quell effects. So I think it's okay. And it's like good if you need to like have an off turn or you need to like pad your life total a little bit, but like it's not the same as if you're playing this in Dromai or like Icelander. So maybe on the lower end, the solid pickup, because you're probably not going to want to be blocking a lot anyway. That all you guys is purely deck dependent. You can pick it up and maybe sideboard it in against like the mirror. That's probably it. Flex is the same thing. You can pick it up and sideboard it into Icelander, or sorry, not Icelander, Dromai. Although like a 1 for 4 at the end or a 1 for 6 is like decent. So we can actually put this in filler. I've played it in Phi and felt okay with it. Now a card like Vandal's Fighting Spirit, on the other hand, is like purely going to be like pretty much just for Dromai. Brothers in Arms is probably not good in Phi. If you need it in the mirror plus Quell, then it's okay. But once again, you're not really trying to be a defensive deck, so you're not happy to use this. You're not happy to be blocking this card or paying into the effect. I forgot the name of this card. I should just look it up. I brought the same thing in Dromai. I think it's probably this junk. You know, it's like an okay static card you can play at the end of your chain. That's kind of it. Scar for a Scar, I think, is like decent filler. You're trading back and forth with your opponent, saying no blocks. I think you'll be able to activate it pretty decently. But I don't think it's like, we can put it in solid pickup. But I don't think it's going to be as effective maybe because it's also not draconic. I think that's a problem. Trade-in is interesting. because I want to put it in deck dependent. I want to put it in junk, but I also want to put it in solid pickup because I've also like really utilized this card. It's very interesting. I don't know why. I don't know why I've been able to, but if you can like buy back a Phoenix Flame and then play this at the end of your combat chain and just draw a card to Arsenal, it's like good. I can't explain why. I can't explain why to you it is, but I've felt good. Every time I played Trade-In, where like I widen my combat chain, I have Trade-In in my hand, not even in my arsenal, and I buy back a Phoenix Flame, and then I like for 1 or maybe 0, and I just play Trade-In as its own as a 0 cost or 3, but then I discard the Phoenix Flame back to my graveyard, which is not a downside because it needs to hit there eventually, but then I get to draw a brand new card. And then if you played it from Arsenal, then you maybe even get to use the card you drew. Like, it's actually like surprisingly good. I'm gonna put it on, this may feel weird to put it above Scar for a Scar, but it's felt like it's had like decent utility. You can also like you can also ditch like blues if you drew too many in a hand, like a weak card. It's weird. It's weird. This is gonna be my hot take of the video. Like, I have not felt bad playing Trade-In and Fi. Maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just me getting lucky on those turns, but like the card has felt okay. It's a 0 for 3. Yeah, it doesn't have Draconic, but like losing to Phoenix Flame, which is not relevant at all, to just get a card is like good. Especially because like you can also just like ditch a Phoenix Flame that you drew. Like if it's an Arsenal, you can go like you like play something in Flame Call Awakening and get a Phoenix Flame, play Trade-In, discard the Phoenix Flame, draw a brand new card, and then just continue the combat chain, and then like get a Phoenix Flame back and still play it that turn. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Maybe I need to play more Scar for Scar. I feel bad. I feel it's weird, but like the card is okay. I might need to play it more and then I'll like rank it down a bit. This is garbage. Don't play Healing Balm. Like, even in your Icelander mirror, like even in your Icelander match, like you just need to race and just hope that like they just don't high roll you with like Aether Ice Veins and like Aether Hails on your turn. Like if you're gonna like take your turn off to like gain 3 life, it's just like just play a threat, you know? Sigil's the same deal, doesn't have Go again. Also Icelander plays around it perfectly. Maybe you can argue for it in the mirror, but you shouldn't be blocking in the mirror anyway, and your opponent's is going to play a 1 attack just to wipe it, and if you block with a card, then you're losing, so like don't play it there either, it's really bad. And Oasis is probably the best sideboard tech you can imagine for Icelander. You're still going to have a really rough time in that matchup and probably not win on average just because of the way they've sort of structured the draft format, but I think that card can really swing it in your favor. Just being able to pitch Miter and like Oasis something, or pitch like Quell, Oasis, can really buy you back into a lot of matches, and can also maybe bait the Icelander player into lethal by like overextending to maybe secure lethal on their end, and then you play Oasis in response, and like you can get a win that way. So yeah, this concludes the list. I think in general, I'm just looking for a lot of Draconic go-agains, relatively low cost unless if they're really powerful effects, like Engulfing or Rebellious are decent. It's just overly static cards. You can have sort of 2 different versions of Fi, where one can be, obviously you're probably going to want to mix of both, and you're probably going to end up in a mix of both, just the way the drafting is going to work out. But I have drafted 2 versions of Fi, and one is like almost like pure redline. It's like a couple blues, the low end of the blue ratio, like maybe like 7, and you're playing a lot of 0 attacks. So like you're playing a lot of Brands, you're playing Rising Resentments, you're playing the Ronin Renegades, you're playing like all these cheap, you're playing Inflames, like you're just going really wide with almost no resources, and then like Emberblade is sometimes there, and Phoenix Flame is usually always free. Or you can sort of like stack your blues a little bit more, maybe go up to 9 or 10 and play sort of more expensive attacks, so like Rebellious Rush, and you can like Rebellious Rush, Emberblade, Phoenix Flame. And those are like 2 variants of the deck that you'll probably have to cross over into at some points. Obviously, I think that like a mix of both is probably where you want to be at, but yeah, wide combat chains, solid attacks, constant recursion from the graveyard, on hit sometimes, buffing effects are great, like with Spreading Flames, Heat Wave, Uprising, Lava Burst, Mounting Anger. Like these are all cards that you definitely want to pick up. In solid pickups, I put Flame Call Awakening and Inflame. Maybe I might even move Inflame a little bit higher. It's kind of difficult to tell. I think it is really crucial for the deck. I think you can get away without running it. I think it depends on sort of what you're looking for. But I think these two are really on the cusp. Like, I need to pick those up, but I'm like gonna take like, you know, Brand and Ronin and Breaking Point, you know, Dust Runner, take the Tempo, Spreading Flames. Like, I'm taking all these cards before I'm taking like Inflame, but that's also kind of dependent. But I definitely need to pick those up along the way. And you start to branch down to filler, where, you know, there's some cards like Flex that are obviously good for the Draw My Mirror, but then also it's like kind of okay offensive threats. Red Hot, it's kind of the same thing. It can do damage, but I'd rather have like any card in the Force It tier over that card, right? I don't want to like rely on that. I'd rather just have like Rebellious Rush, or even better, I would rather have any of like the 1-for-4s or 1-for-5s. You know, I'd rather have all those. You know, you have like. And once you get on a deck dependent, these are cards that can be really solid. Like, obviously, Oasis is like one of the best cards you can ask for in the Eye Center mirror, but it's like only really, sorry, not a mirror, but like the Eye Center matchup. That's like the only place where you really want the card. So it's just purely deck dependent. And then there's like some cards that are only deck dependent based on like your deck construction. So if your deck construction has a lot of Phoenix Flames and ways to get them, like Flame Call Awakenings or Inflames, then sure, like Phoenix form can be good, you know? But if you're playing like a standard list that doesn't have a lot of those, then why would you play that card, you know? Or like Lava Vein Loyalty, Cinderskin, like these are like really weak effects because you need Draconic Go again. But if your deck is just jam-packed with them, like almost every single one of your attacks is Draconic Go again. You don't even have like Lava Burst, you don't have Breaking Point, you don't have Take the Tempo, like everything in your deck is Draconic Go again. Then like sure, you can get away drafting these later on because they're probably getting past you. Like Thaw is obviously a miracle worker in the Dromai matchup. Same goes for, you know, Gandalfs. And then like there's some stuff that you may want for the mirror. You know, you can take like Stoke, or that all you got. You can take Brothers in Arms if you want. Maybe if you're like playing first and you really need to sort of weather the storm of your opponent coming in on turn 2. But then that's kind of it. And then you have like junk cards that I've never really seen pay off well, cards I don't think will really perform very well, and you should probably skip them. If you're forced to take them at the very end, then it's okay. You know, you can probably maybe get something out of them, but I think you'll have a hard time doing so. So those are my thoughts. I may be collaborating with Ethnic Smoke or the Eye Center tier list just because he has a lot more experience playing that deck in draft. I have had some experience. I've drafted it a few times. I've played it in sealed. But I think it'd be fun for us to collab and kind of talk about the cards that way. I think that would be a really cool way to sort of wrap up the series. But the first two are just me on my own opinions, my own experience. So if you have a different one, feel free to let me know and tell me what you think of my list in the comments. Thanks for watching.